As we begin, I'd like to start by thanking our partners and sponsors that made this event possible: the Canadian Northern Economic Development Agency, the GNWT Department of Industry, Tourism and Investment, and the City of Yellowknife, and of course support from True North FM. Kyle is with us here today, and he is a lifelong Yellowknifer who's been building websites for the past 14 years. What started as a volunteer contribution for a few Yellowknife nonprofits morphed into his company With Media, which he now regularly helps small businesses, artists, and nonprofits get online with modern, easy-to-use websites. Currently with the pandemic, e-commerce websites have gained popularity, and Kyle has been helping many clients shift to online sales. Even in his own business, Bush Order Provisions, which he co-owns with his partner Marie, has shifted completely to curbside sales, all managed through an e-commerce website. His presentation on online stores comes from hours of research, development, and more importantly, hands-on learning. Before I hand things over to Kyle, I would also like to congratulate Tyga Blossom and For Women Only, who have both been the recipients and winners of our free online store giveaway. So they'll be working with Kyle to actually develop a free online store. So without further ado, please join me in a virtual round of applause for Kyle Thomas.
Thanks, Deneen, and happy International Women's Day to everyone, and Trailblazers Symposium Day. Today I'm gonna walk through kind of this presentation I put together on e-commerce. This is kind of the process that I would walk through with any client that I work with, including some of my own stuff in how to plan an e-commerce website, and then some of the things that you can do to execute it on your own, or if you happen to be working with someone like myself, those steps that we would go through. Some housekeeping: I am watching the chat over to my left. If you have any questions, throw them in there and I'll watch them. I know Deneen is watching them as well. This isn't so much hopefully isn't so much just a talking head presentation as it is maybe some practical things. So I've kind of hopefully set it up where you could make notes about your own business or your own ideas. And as we walk through, by the end of it, you could have a formal kind of work plan to take the next steps, sort of thing. So to jump into it, I'm going to click on the right slide. And Deneen went a little bit over who I am and what I've been doing. I've been involved with the Yellowknife Chamber of Commerce since 2014. I've had a business in Yellowknife since 2009, helped a lot of local organizations and businesses. And most recently, e-commerce has really taken off and become something of a key asset to many businesses, kind of wading through the pandemic times. And so my experience comes from just working with a lot of these businesses, as well as some of the practical applications that myself and my partner work with every day through one of our other companies, our other business that we run. And so these things aren't just me reading textbooks and figuring it out. It's real life, on the ground kind of trial and error. And what the results are what I've learned here today to share with you. So to get into it here, the first case study I thought I would just quickly go through is actually our own case study of Bush Order Provisions website. And not to self-promote this too much, but it's probably more complex than what most people need to get online with. But it has really aided in our little success out of our home-based business currently. And I have a couple of these examples throughout the presentation to kind of give you different ideas on what you can do with your idea or your business. So on this particular website, we have categorized products. There's different products for different days, and there's different types of products. We have a weekly order cutoff. So at a certain time in the week, products get removed from the website so that they can't be ordered after a certain date or time. We have product variations. So there can be multiple different variations for an individual product. That can be size, color, what have you. We also have a subscription model built into the website. So on a reoccurring basis, ours being monthly, we have people paying into a reoccurring, basically a reoccurring service. So without any steps on their own. It's just an automatic payment each month, much like a cell phone service or a cell phone plan. But we built that into our site for some of the services and products we have. We have gift cards built in here. We have multiple local pickup options, which I think is a big thing that's kind of propped up over the last 6 months, is that pickup option thing. So we have 2 locations, and people at checkout get to choose which one they want. There's product specific shipping. So think about what your products are and think about who your customers are and where it's going. So if we have something, if someone buys something here locally in Yellowknife, then the shipping is free because we'll go out and deliver it ourselves, versus if they're in somewhere other parts of Canada, Canada Post integrates in and we automatically have the shipping quote and the right price. There's checkout details and there's exportable data. So that's just one example. And now that I've talked about that, we're going to jump into actually what some of this looks like and how we got to where we are. So e-commerce, you're all here because I think you kind of get the idea that we want to sell a product or a service online. That is what it is. It's goods, services, using the internet as kind of the point of sale system that we so commonly see at the checkout register of any business, brick and mortar business. E-commerce can be, as I said, physical, or it can be virtual. It can be a service. It can be a rentable item. We'll get into those things, but the idea is that more or less a monetary transaction is facilitated through the use of a website or an application on the internet. So who is e-commerce for? Now, I don't remember where I was supposed to ask for the audience participation, but I would love in the chat if people were to just throw in there what type of business idea they have, or what type of industry they're in. You don't have to give the full idea if you don't want to, but it helps. It'll help guide my discussion here, kind of having a better understanding of who is in the audience and what services that can be used or applications we can use e-commerce for. So just a list of some of the different ones that you could use. You could be a retail business. Oftentimes I think consultants and service professionals forget that they can also use e-commerce, be it through booking appointments, booking Zoom meetings like this, booking webinars. Those are all functions of an e-commerce website. Tourism operators would use this for booking tours or rentals. Restaurants, as I think most of us know now, have adapted to doing online ordering. Yoga instructors, that's a very common one. I think there's a big platform called Mind and Body that is very geared towards the health and wellness industry. Rental businesses, membership sites. And when I say membership sites, I'm thinking like if you're you're a life coach or some sort of professional coach, and you have like a master class of some variety that you want to build, that is where a membership site could be implemented. And really anyone who could take transactions online. Seeing some great participation in the chat, so thank you for that. So it seems like a couple good examples there. So really, if you have any form of an idea or a business, you can implement this in some different ways. There's some that are going to be specific to certain platforms, but for the most part, we can find kind of what the idea is of the businesses and match it to the right service. So this is where I was meant to ask for the call to action. So thank you for those who sent everything already. I want to get into planning your e-commerce business now. I think when everyone engages me to build a website, it's always like, how do you like the actual building of the tool? And there's a big step that comes before that, and it's just planning the whole thing out. Some can be very simple. If you are a service, like a very simple product-based business, or you have a very simple idea, it could take very little time to plan that and bring it online. It also could be very complicated, or there could be a lot of logistics involved in figuring out what goes into the store and how you want to operate it. So if you've got 5 products, very simple. If you've got 1,000 products with different variations, could be more time consuming. It can all be done the same way, but it matters on how large the business is or how small it is and what you want to get out of it. So Thank you for those who have sent me those, your businesses. I kind of have an idea now. It's a bit of service, a bit of product mixed together. There might be some membership thing. I see like podcasting. So that could be like a subscription-based thing, like a Patreon thing where you could almost have like premium content going there. So there's a couple different ideas that could come of this. So another case study from a client of mine. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with Lori Crawford, but she runs this great little website or great little business called Zing. And she focuses on raw food, prepared raw food for Yellowknife. She came to me a couple of years ago and we built this e-commerce website. She had very specific requirements, one of those being the cutoff time. So I think all orders had to be in by a certain time of day or a certain time of week. And then there was a couple options when you were checking out, where you were asked what time of day you wanted the delivery. I think it was like a lunchtime and an evening. And so that she could manage her orders efficiently without having to go through each one and figure out or call or record manually what those settings were. So on top of that, she had products that had different sizes. So I think one example I have for you and off the top of my head is she sold kimchi or sells kimchi. She sells it in 500 milliliter jars and she sells it in 1 liter jars. So it was one product that had 2 variations, much like a t-shirt might have multiple colors or different sizes even. So she had coupons on there, gift cards where people could pre-order things and use them as gifts. She was selling workshops. She had an interesting feature on there for store vacation setting where she could actually temporarily disable the site when she would travel or go on her vacation, just kind of as a one button click type of system that works really well for her because she can turn it on and off really easily. And as far as I know, it's working efficiently for her, and it's proven to be a viable tool for her business so far. So that's another. I realize now that these are both been food-based examples, and I do have another couple as we go. So back into the planning, one of the things that I like to work with people on when we're planning out an e-commerce website is how will the customers use the store? Like what is the purpose of them interacting with the website? Are they purchasing a physical product? Are they purchasing a virtual product? Be it an ebook or PDF or something along those lines? Are they signing up for a subscription service? Are they booking an appointment or service? Or are they renting a product? Now, this seems like very straightforward information. You can probably write it down within 30 seconds and have the answer. But knowing that ahead of time helps either yourself, if you're going to build this website yourself, or it helps someone like myself to know what we need to implement at the get-go for the website. Kind of out of the box, every e-commerce platform works with physical products. That's kind of the baseline of what comes out of when you set up an e-commerce website. It's meant to sell a physical product, but it's also very easily switched to a virtual product. If you've got ebooks or things that you develop that people want to buy, whatever it is. Or you can then switch it into a subscription service where it's a reoccurring payment. That's another kind of like a plugin that we would implement. And same with booking appointments. These are just things we can add on top of that base level of e-commerce to make it work for your business and be flexible to what your needs are in a website. And same with the rental products. I think this slide is kind of the same thing for some reason that I developed, so I'm not going to dwell on it too much, but you can have virtual products. This is more just to get you thinking about what products you will have on the website, a simple physical product versus a variable product. So you may think that, oh, I need a t-shirt, but it's actually a variable product if you have small, medium, large, extra large, white, black, purple, blue, different colors. Those are all variations. And so while that seems very simple still, it needs to be, for someone like myself, needs to be accounted for, and I actually have a template spreadsheet that I send to people when I'm working with them to ask them to start filling it out. And it is a slightly daunting task because it's not very visual, but It's what the back end of the website needs to categorize and organize the products that when we're implementing them. So leading off of that, we want to look at how to organize those products. Again, you could be very small and you may only have one category. Lori with the Zing really doesn't have many categories. It's just, these are the products she has available this week. They're on that shop page. That's kind of all there is to it. But you could be a slightly larger e-commerce website. I'm thinking like a retail store, a bookstore might have different genres. So each genre could be a category. You want to be able to help people find what they're looking for when they're browsing the website. So by having these into collections or categories, it helps narrow down what things are. It also helps you manage the different products you have. You can quickly see what is in where. Another way of categorizing things is by brand. If you're a clothing store or a furniture store, you may want to have different categories for different brands that you carry, knowing that people are looking for those specific brands. And then again, product type. So you may have a category for physical things, but you may also have a category for the services that you provide. So making note of those before you actually get into the nitty-gritty really helps kind of categorize where your products are going. And then figuring out what information you need to collect from your customer. Now, the obvious is the shipping and billing information and the product specifications. But like we were talking about with Lori's, she actually asked at checkout, when do you want this delivered? Can it be delivered at a lunchtime? Can it be delivered in the evening? Do you want it picked up or do you want it shipped? Those are questions, but there might be some more questions that you need for your particular e-commerce business, such as engraving or personalization of certain things. You could have one base product and then have someone answer the question at checkout or within the product saying, what color do you want it? You could sell, I know someone is doing small wood wall art. And maybe there's a personalized, wall hanging, and you sell it as a personalized wall hanging that has 20 characters, but that's just a generic product. And then in the checkout, you actually have people fill out what those 20 characters are: home sweet home, always yours. Those types of details could be some of that specific customer collecting information that you might require for different products. So nailing those down as you go really helps before we get into the building of it. And then what other parameters you require for your website? For our Bush Order website that Marie and I work with, we also work with QuickBooks Online, which is our accounting system. So when a sale comes in and we complete that sale, it integrates right back to our accounting system as a sales receipt. So we don't even have to do any of the manual work. It just automatically integrates and is pulled back into QuickBooks. So there's no question that it actually is being recorded properly as a sale. At the same time, you could be a brick and mortar store at the same time. So you may want point of sale integration. This comes up a lot with people that use the Square tap and I don't know if anyone slides anymore, but the swipes anymore, but the Square integration. Last summer, we were at the farmer's market and we were using the Square for sales, but we also take Square payments on our website so that they're connected. And we only actually have to use one point of sale or one credit card processing system, which I'll get into a little bit later. The nice thing about Square, and I'm not trying to sell everyone on Square by any means, but if you do have a physical store and you are using that, even if it's like the farmer's market or craft sales or what have you, if you are using a system like Square, you can actually do inventory management syncing. So what is reflected on your website is also what's reflected kind of in person at your point of sale. So if you happen to sell a physical product at a physical location, it would automatically sync with the website and take down the stock so that there's only what is reflected on the website is the accurate stock that you actually have on hand. That way you're not scrambling if you happen to sell one on the website that's already sold, and then there becomes this confusion, stressful situation that you want to avoid. Cutoff times is another one. This is very specific to food businesses that pre-orders, that type of thing. And then minimum order amounts. So if you don't want to take orders below $25, you could set something like that up. so that when people put things in their cart, it says you have not reached the minimum order threshold, please add another item, or please, unfortunately you can't order that few product. So there's some of the parameters, and now every business, I understand, is going to be different. So that's where you should be thinking about those things now, and don't even think about what maybe you're using. Think about what could be improved in your workflow. I sometimes maybe go beyond just the e-commerce system and actually look at the whole workflow of what you're trying to do in selling products. How can the e-commerce store not just improve sales, but how can it make your entire workflow more efficient for you, so you're not managing it as an additional thing to your everyday business? This is a good example of someone that isn't food related, but also another local business. Christina is an artist in town, so she doesn't have many categories on her website. It's mainly just the shop page with her different artwork. There's no cutoff times, there's no minimum order. It's just, this is a very straightforward product. She has Canada Post integrated into her website, so no matter where she sells her products, I think locally they're delivered for free, but anywhere else the shipping is automatically calculated based on the weights and size of the packaging that she has defined in that product page. And then it is automatically added to the total. She receives the order, has the shipping already accounted for. She takes that she packages up, takes it to Canada Post, it's done. There are further steps you could take with that, in that you could actually have the website with a Canada Post integration produce a shipping label, so that you don't even have to essentially go to the post office, to the clerk, and send it manually. You could just print the label, pack it to the packaging, and drop it off at a drop point, rather than that physical interaction. And this website is also integrated with a Square point of sale. So if this person was at a craft sale or makerspace type of thing, then the inventory is constantly synced, so that there's never out of whack. So that was a lot about planning a website. And hopefully some of you have written down some of those things, because they'll be exactly the same questions that you're kind of asked as you're building a website, be it yourself or through someone like myself. I'm just going to take some water for a second here. So that was the planning. And then the next kind of step is looking at what platform are you going to use for selling online, because there are many. And sometimes we go with the easiest one and we go far down that hole and then realize it doesn't do something. So understanding your options before you go too far is a wise choice. And granted, I've done a very quick job with this slide of showing some of the different options, but I'm happy to answer these questions, afterwards or offline or what have you. So one of the main ones we've actually maybe have heard about, especially during these pandemic times, is Shopify. Shopify is a Canadian company that's gone public. It has just skyrocketed with the pandemic. It is very easy to use. It's what I consider a managed server. It's a managed kind of platform. It's probably the best suited for someone with a complex e-commerce system that wants to do it themselves. So they have templates that you can just click, template, yes, please. They have third-party integration for a lot of these things that, albeit cost extra, but they do have them. They do things like reoccurring payments, and they do a bit more customization than a website solution. And it's pretty straightforward to get set up. So there's Shopify, which is kind of the middle ground that I would say between a complete custom solution and a very basic website solution. Those website solutions we see a lot of in the commercials, Square and Wix and Weebly. There's a couple others that I can't remember, but they're essentially website builders that have integrated e-commerce on a very basic level into their platforms to continue to capture that consumer base, that customer base that wants to sell products. Now, if you just have a physical product, one or two or three, these probably would be a perfectly acceptable option for you. And they're very straightforward to set up. albeit that they're probably limiting in certain things. Now I can't, because I haven't worked with them a lot lately, I can't guarantee things like that there's Canada Post integration for shipping as easily, whereas Shopify and WooCommerce, I definitely know that those can do them. If you needed to integrate with a point of sale system, it might not be accessible. Square is one of the providers of an online e-commerce, but if you didn't use Square or you used Wix and you did use Square, they might not integrate. So there's a couple other factors to think about it, which is the shipping integration as well as the payment processing. The final one is the one that I work with the most, because it is the most robust and because we can scale it from very simple to very large. So I've developed much more like Shopify on WooCommerce. So instead of you going to WooCommerce, to Shopify, you'd kind of come to someone like myself or another web developer, and we would have a very simple setup like Shopify would. But at the same time, a custom solution like WooCommerce would allow us to scale the website up or down based on the needs of your business or your idea. So it's semi-managed in the sense that someone like myself might be involved, but at the same time, think about it this way, and how I often think about building your own website versus hiring someone locally is I'm on the ground, or someone like myself is on the ground, and we can provide support when needed. Whereas if you're using one of these systems on your own, they may have some perks of their own, but there may not be a human at the other end to help you, guide you, or to figure it out. And you may just end up spending hours in a FAQ forum. So there's other things that are involved in the WooCommerce way. It's better for certain search engine optimization. There's more integration with all sorts of different point of sale systems or shipping systems. We can customize the templates a little bit more. So it's really where you want to land on that sliding scale of do I want something simple and straightforward that I can set up in a couple days? Do I want something slightly more robust that I know will carry me through a little bit of growth? Or do I want something that's custom for my business because I have a specific set of requirements that I need, or I want to deal with someone on the ground type of thing? With that said, there are industry specific e-commerce platforms out there. So I do note that there is someone that mentioned a restaurant business, and I'm not sure if there was another one, but a restaurant business. There's probably industry specific e-commerce platforms for those things. So you could come to me and say, I have a restaurant, I want to build an ordering platform. And I would probably say, sure, great, sounds awesome. But I might also say, is there a custom solution for your needs that has already been developed, that they do it really well, they are niche to that industry, and they will probably be able to work with you a lot better, or have the system in place to work with you. So like restaurants have different ones. Now I would reach out to, last time we did this kind of e-commerce workshop, I was actually partnered with one of the local restaurants in Yellowknife who switched to an e-commerce platform, and they had a lot of good input in regards to that. So I would look at what other restaurants are doing, see if there's a commonality between them, and kind of go in that direction. Booking services, and the one that jumps out to me is MindBody. That's commonly used within fitness centers, gyms, yoga studios. They do it really well. There's a fee to it, but it is really done well because they know that industry. That is their niche. It's almost like don't reinvent the wheel type of thing. Go with what works. And same with the tourism. There are several tourism point of sale systems or booking things. I've built a couple of them. I've used a couple of these. So there's give and take for each one. Some of them come with higher costs. It's really what fits your need the best. So consider that before maybe just starting your own website or going to someone who's going to develop you something from the ground up. Is there a pre-built solution that will work for me and that will be around for the long term? Now, payment gateways. These are one of the things you have to think about almost at the forefront, is how am I actually going to take payments? Not all platforms accept the same payment gateways, and not all payment gateways are priced the same. So there's a lot of details that I haven't fully put into a spreadsheet to make a comparable cost benefit analysis, but they seem to be common around something like a, what is it, 2.3% possibly, and then a 30 cents per transaction. They start to get into the nitty gritty of those pennies and cents kind of thing. But just, I think the bigger thing is to make sure that the platform you want to use uses the gateway you want to use, or vice versa. If you already use a payment gateway such as Square or PayPal, make sure that the platform that you want to use or that you're looking into also uses that platform. I know Shopify is a tricky one because Shopify has their own payment gateway, and there's a transactional fee and a percentage that they use. But if you were to use a third-party one, which also has that payment fee, Shopify will add their own percentage on top of that to use a gateway that is not theirs. So there's even more cost there that they're trying to keep you in within their own ecosystem, which is fine and dandy. But if you use Square for offline things, maybe you want to use it for online things as well, so you only have one to deal with. So weighing those different options. Same with Moneris is a common debit card machine and Visa machine that people use in brick and mortar. Will that integrate with your e-commerce platform? Does that matter? So asking those questions, figuring out which platform works with which payment gateway and vice versa is very important as you get started, because you don't want to go start using one only to find out that you can't use it and then have to kind of go backwards. And accounting is not my forte at all. So dealing with where all that money is coming from and going is another beast. So making sure that it's clear and concise to start with is always recommended. Yes, where I already talked about this. So let's talk about the costs for a second. Like I say, it's a sliding scale. If you were to hire a web developer, there'd probably be a setup fee. There'd probably be, with all platforms, whether it's Shopify, Wix, Weebly, WooCommerce, there's always a platform fee. You've got to host that thing online somewhere. You have to have a domain name. If you already have a website, then you're already paying for some of these costs. They're just business expenses to operate on the internet. And then the payment gateway costs. Those are per transaction most of the time. Some of them have annual or monthly fees, but I would avoid those ones. You want to be as cost effective as possible, but also making sure that you have a system that works within your needs, within your business's requirements. And one of the other things to look at is social media integration. Kristen has a workshop coming up in 2 hours, or about 4 o'clock, I believe, talking all about social media. So this is good tie-in. If you have questions about how social media can integrate with your e-commerce site, that would be a good opportunity. Both Facebook and Instagram have a thing called products or shops that you can integrate with your Facebook pages. How it works is you set that up and you tie it to your website. So when you have products on your website, they show up in your Facebook or Instagram shop page. And so people on those platforms can see what products you have, and it just takes them directly from that product on social media to that product page on your website, essentially skipping a step in the sales funnel. So instead of having to send someone to your main website, down to your store, down to the product to maybe buy it, it kind of just goes social media, product, buy it kind of thing. So it tries to get rid of some of those extra steps and gives the consumer a clear path of purchase. And then you can see all sorts of analytics, but we won't get into that right away. One last thing to note before we kind of go into a Q&A portion of this is privacy. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not an expert on privacy concerns, but we are essentially collecting consumers' data. Just even their billing address is considered their personal data. And each e-commerce platform probably has a templated privacy statement. it is best to read that, make sure that it's customized to your business, and to make sure that you're following particular laws that are set out by our jurisdictions. There's nothing territory-wide, but Canadian-wide there is Personal Information Protection Electronic Document Act. And we're dispersing of that information properly within specific time periods as directed by those things. So I've never worried too much about this. This is a personal opinion of mine, not a legal perspective. I release the data when I need to so that it's not actually stored on the website anymore or websites anymore. I've never had an issue with something like this, but it's just good to be aware that this is a thing, making sure that your website's secure, talking to a lawyer if you need to, just to make sure that it's clear what you're doing and what you need to do to make sure that you're doing the correct things. But again, it's not something to be nervous about. It's just something to be aware of. And as per usual, I feel like I've burned through this very quickly. I see we're at about 45 minutes into this, so I will open the floor up for questions. I'm happy to answer any. Deneen already has information about the Privacy Act in the chat, as well as a link to the presentation that's happening at 4 o'clock with Kristen. Happy to field any questions on what it takes to starting up an e-commerce website. This was probably a lot on the side of planning, but good planning makes a great product. So once you get through that, then it should be smooth sailing.
Thank you very much, Kyle. That was a really informative presentation, and I hope everyone was jotting down notes. As Kyle said, starting to think about some of those things that are going to go into the back end of your website will make it so much easier for you to actually create it, or to work with someone like Kyle to create that for you. So we'll open it up to questions. If you have any, feel free to type them in the chat box, or even just unmute your microphone and dive in. Well, I know we've been a very quiet group throughout the Trailblazers Symposium, so I'm not surprised that there's not a lot of questions. Maybe we'll just give folks one last opportunity, and then we will wrap things up.
I also realized that my email address isn't on the slide that's showing, so I'll just throw it in the chat. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Whether you build something on your own, come to me later, hire someone else, don't care. Just happy to answer any questions, get over some of those barriers or hurdles that you may have, a couple unknowns, and I can help point you in the right direction. Sage, there's a question from Natasha. I believe Sage is a different company than QuickBooks Online, but there is, I believe, Sage integration in some of the e-commerce platforms. So if you do use Sage, then I believe you can set up some sort of integration into some of the systems. So the question, if anyone can't see the chat, was integrating QuickBooks pretty simple for us? It did take a couple hiccups just because we weren't completely clear on what it was doing the first couple times. But it is pretty simple once it's set up. We've had it set up for several weeks, and it's really based on what you set it up as. So we have it set so that when we complete an order on our website, it goes into a completed section or whatever. And then once a day, the QuickBooks integration checks the website for any new completed orders. It takes those new completed orders that it finds, if there are some, and then it puts them in as sales receipts into QuickBooks. Now you can set what it brings them in as, but we set it up as sales receipts. I think that was correct. And it also brings in the product data. So within QuickBooks, we can actually then see what products are selling the most. It also brings in the customer data so that the customers are in the system as the same customer information back and forth. So if we needed to send something like an invoice through QuickBooks, we have all the products and the consumer data, customer data in there as well.
Great. Were there any other questions? Well, seeing none, thank you so much, Kyle, for this presentation. It has been recorded and will be available on our website. So if anyone wants to check back in for any of those helpful tips and lists and different considerations. Our next session as part of the Trailblazer Symposium is at 4 o'clock. There is a link in the chat box, and I hope you're able to join us then as well. So once again, thank you so much, Kyle.
Thanks, Deneen.